Good day everyone, I am Adasa G. Sarabia from Group 5. I'm going to give the rationalization and a short discussion on the pretest items for cell and molecular biology and anatomy and physiology. I'm going to discuss on what makes the options wrong and what makes the options right. That leads us to the correct answer. So please listen attentively in this pre-recorded video. Thank you. Number 1. What is the name given to the nucleus and cytoplasm of a cell combined? A. Protoplasm. B. Vacuole. C. Nucleoplasm. D. Meiosis 2. Meiosis 2 is a process and is not even an organelle. Nucleoplasm sounds like a combination of nucleus and cytoplasm, but it excludes the nucleus. Vacuole is a lone organelle which help in maintaining water balance in the cell. Protoplasm is the correct answer because it includes cytoplasm and the nucleus in the cell. Number 2. Through many studies, including imagery of cells using an electron microscope, it has been determined that a cell membrane consists of two layers. This is known as the bilayer. What is this bilayer composed of? A. Chlorolipids. B. Phospholipids. C. Carbolipids. D. Talolipids. The bilayer of cell membrane is called phospholipid, which is arranged in two layers, turned oppositely, having a lipid-soluble tails facing one another. Number 3. Which facial bone is responsible for the formation of the lateral wall of the orbitals? A. Maxillary bones. B. Nasal bones. C. Zygomatic bones. D. Lacrimal bones. Maxillary bones form upper jaw. Nasal bones form the bridge of the nose. Lacrimal bones functions in the process of lacrimation or crying. Zygomatic bones, also known as cheekbone or malar bone, protrude laterally and form the prominence of the cheeks, a portion of the lateral wall, the orbit floor, and some portions of the temporal fossa and infratemporal fossa. So the answer is zygomatic bones. Number 4. What is the enzyme responsible for stitching together Okazaki fragments? A. Helicase. B. Single-stranded binding protein. C. Primase. D. Ligase. Helicase is an enzyme responsible in unwinding DNA. Single-stranded binding protein binds with DNA, but it does not bind well in double-stranded DNA. Primase synthesizes RNA primers during DNA replication. Ligase function by filling in the gaps in DNA that are created when DNA is synthesized. So when we say filling the gaps, this only means that it seals together breaks or nicks in the DNA strand, and the answer is ligase. Number 5. Which of the following does not contain apocrine sweat glands? A. Perianal region. B. Areola of the breast. C. Axilla. D. Fingers. Apocrine sweat glands are scent glands and its secretions usually have an odor. It can be mostly found in armpits, the groin, and the area around the nipples of the breast. Perianal region is the area surrounding the anus. Basically, it is near the groin. Areola of the breast is the skin on the breast that surrounds the nipple. Axilla is known as armpit. All first three options contain apocrine sweat glands, so the answer is fingers. Number 6. What is the deepest layer of the integument? A. The epidermis. B. The dermis. C. The stratum corneum. D. The papillary dermal layer. The papillary dermal layer is the thin top layer of the dermis. Stratum corneum is the outer layer of the skin or the epidermis. Epidermis is the top layer of the skin. The dermis is actually the middle layer, and hypodermis is the deepest layer of the skin. So among all the options, the dermis is the best answer. Number 7. What is the smallest unit of life that can survive and reproduce on its own? A. Cell. B. Organ. C. Tissues. D. Population. The smallest unit of life is none other than the cell, which can survive and produce on its own through cell division. Cells make up a tissue, and numerous tissues makes up an organ, while population is a group of organisms of species living together at a particular place. Number 8. Where does protein synthesis takes place? A. Ribosomes. B. Lysosomes. C. Endoplasmic reticulum. D. Golgi bodies. Golgi bodies or Golgi apparatus is responsible for transporting, modifying, and packaging proteins and lipids into vesicles. Endoplasmic reticulum is an enclosed passageway for transporting materials such as the protein synthesized by ribosomes. Lysosomes are garbage collectors in the cell. Ribosomes is capable of synthesizing proteins, so the answer is ribosomes, as it is where protein synthesis takes place. Number 9. Why are our lips redder than our palm? A. There is an increased blood flow in the lips. B. Lips are heavily keratinized. C. Lip epidermis is thinner. D. Many blood vessels are located around the lips. According to Beth Ann Ditkoff, 2012, the lips are redder than our palms because of the underlying blood vessels. The arteries and veins are connected through series of blood vessels called the capillaries. These red-colored blood-filled capillaries are close to the thin skin on your lips. Number 10. Which of the following cannot be found in prokaryotes? A. Cytoplasm. B. Plasma membrane. C. Membrane-bound nucleus. D. DNA. Prokaryotes have cytoplasm, DNA, and plasma membrane. Though prokaryotes are surrounded by a plasma membrane, there is the absence of internal membrane-bound organelles within their cytoplasm. Thus, the answer is option C, membrane-bound nucleus. Number 11. What do we call the mutation that is brought about the Earth's natural radioactivity? A. Continuous. B. Induced. C. Lysosomes. D. Chloroplast. The answer for this question is lysosomes. Number 12. Which of the following organelles produces turgor pressure against cell wall and mainly acts as water reservoir? A. Plastids. B. Vacuole. C. Lysosomes. D. Chloroplast. Plastids functions in photosynthesis and the production and storage of metabolites. Lysosomes breaks down food and get rid of waste. Chloroplast contains chlorophyll and uses energy from sunlight to make own food. And vacuole stores minerals and waters. Turgor makes living plant tissue rigid. Loss of turgor due to loss of water from plant cells causes flowers and leaves to wilt. Thus, the answer is vacuole, which is the water reservoir of the plant cell. Number 13. The process involved in the production of mRNA using DNA as template is termed blank. A. Transcription. B. Replication. C. Gene manipulation. D. Reverse transcription. Reverse transcription is the encoding of the RNA genome into DNA molecules. Gene manipulation is the process of inducing changes in gene expression and the expression of novel genes. Replication is a biological process of producing two identical replicas of DNA from one original DNA molecule. Transcription is the process of copying a segment of DNA into RNA. A messenger RNA is produced from RNA molecules that can encode proteins, which is from the transcribed DNA. Number 14. What muscle is described as involuntary, not striated, and have a single nucleus? A. Smooth. B. Skeletal. C. Cardiac. D. Connective. Connective pertains to a tissue that supports, protects, and gives structure to other tissues and organs in the body. Cardiac muscle is involuntary but is striated muscles that constitutes the main tissue of the wall of the heart. Skeletal muscles comprise muscle fibers bundled by the perimysium and grouped by the epimysium, which affect breathing, ocular movement, motion, locomotion, and regulation of metabolism. Smooth muscle is an involuntary non-striated muscle or spindle-shaped and have a single nucleus. Thus, the answer is smooth. Number 15. Which of the following is not considered as a reproductive cell? A. Gamete. B. somatic cell. C. Egg cell. D. Sperm cell. Sperm cell and egg cells are sex cells, and sex cells are referred to as gametes. Thus, the answer is somatic cells because somatic cells are cells in the body except sperm and egg cells. Number 16. The cell wall of the plant is made of blank. A. Lipids. B. Cellulose. C. Protein. D. Cell membrane. Cell wall of plants are made up of cellulose or the long fibers, linear polymers of hundreds of glucose molecules. Glucose are monomers of sugar, which is under carbohydrates. Thus, lipids and protein are not the correct options, and cell membrane is an organelle of the cell, making the cellulose as the correct answer. Number 17. At metaphase of the meiotic division, the chromosomes are attached to the spindle fibers as blank. A. Double chromatids. B. Non-homologous pairs. C. Single chromatid strands. D. A tetrad of 4 chromatids. A tetrad of 4 chromatids occur during prophase 1. Single chromative strands happens during anaphase. Non-homologous pairs are chromosomes that do not belong to the same pair. Double chromatids are attached to the spindle fibers during metaphase 1. So the answer is double chromatids. 18. The bipolar nature of the cell membrane is due to blank. A. Presence of caries. B. Presence of oxygen. C. Phospholipids bilayer. D. Integral proteins. Phospholipids bilayer is what comprises cell membrane. It is bipolar in nature because of its hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail, which allows certain molecules or ions to pass through by means of active or passive transport. The answer is letter C. Number 19. Which of the following is made up of diploid number of cells? A. Zygote. B. Sperm cell. C. Egg cell. D. Both B and C. Sperm cell and egg cell are both haploid cells. Haploid is the quality of cell having one set of chromosomes. Diploid means carrying 2 sets of chromosomes. Since zygote carries the complete set of chromosomes from 2 parents, thus zygote is made up of diploid number of cells. Number 20. What do you call the types of symmetry where the body parts are paired on either side of the body? A. Dorsal. B. Bilateral. C. Radial. D. Ventral. Dorsal or posterior refers to the back portion of the body. Radial symmetry is the condition of having similar parts regularly arranged around a central axis. Ventral or anterior refers to the front part of the body. Bilateral symmetry is a form of symmetry in which the opposite sides are similar. The external appearance is the same on the left and right sides in a sagittal plane. Thus, the answer is bilateral. Number 21. Which of the following is not part of thoracic cage? A. Clavicle. B. Ribs. C. Costal cartilages. D. Sternum. Sternum is the bone in the middle of our chest. Costal cartilage is found at the anterior ends of the ribs, which contributes to the elasticity of the walls of the thorax. Ribs is what comprises the thoracic cage, with its costal cartilages and the sternum. That leaves us the answer, which is letter A, the clavicle. Number 22. What is the longest bone in the body? A. Humerus. B. Femur. C. Tibia fibula. D. Clavicle. Humerus is the long bone that forms the shoulder above and elbow joint below, simply the upper arm bone. Tibia fibula are the two long bones located in the lower leg. Clavicle is the collarbone. Femur or the thigh bone is the longest and strongest bone in our body. Number 23. How many bones does an adult body has? A. 201, B. 200, C. 217, D. 206. An adult human body has 206 bones. Infants have typically around 270 bones. Some human adults may have 213 bones due to the varying number of ribs, vertebrae, and digits. Number 24. What structure provides flexible support and protection to the spinal cord? A. Skull, B. Ribs, C. Vertebral column, D. Sternum. Skull supports the face and forms a protective cavity for the brain. Ribs and sternum protects the organs in chest such as heart and lungs. Thus the answer is vertebral column, which provides flexible support and protection to the spinal cord. Number 25. Which of the following is false in comparing prophase 1 of meiosis and prophase of mitosis? A. The chromosomes condense in both. B. Tetrads form in both. C. The nuclear envelope disassembles in both. D. A spindle forms in both. Options A, C, and D occur in both prophase of mitosis and prophase 1. Thus, the false statement is option B, tetrads form in both because tetrad only forms during prophase 1. Number 26. Which of the following is responsible for formation of blood cell? A. Cartilage, B. Bone marrow, C. Joints, D. Tendons. Cartilage is soft, gel-like padding between bones that protects joints and facilitates movement. Joint is where two bones make contact. Tendons are bands of tissue that connects muscle to bone. Bone marrow, specifically the red bone marrow, contains hematopoietic stem cells, which are stem cells that form blood cells. Number 27. This is a type of epithelial tissue with columnar cells which appear to be arranged in more than one layer because they have been altered by pressure. A. Simple squamous, B. Pseudo-stratified epithelium, C. Stratified squamous, D. Transitional epithelium. Simple squamous is a single layer of flat scale-shaped cells. Stratified squamous is a stratified epithelium in which the topmost layer is made up of squamous, flattened, and scale-like epithelial cells. Transitional epithelium, also known as urothelium, is a type of stratified epithelium which usually appear cuboidal when relaxed and squamous when stretched. Pseudo-stratified epithelium appears to be stratified but instead consists of single layer of irregularly shaped and differently sized columnar cells. This means to say that the answer is option B. Number 28. This is a type of epithelial tissue which balloon-like cells subjected to contraction and stretching. A. Simple squamous, B. Pseudo-stratified epithelium, C. Stratified squamous, D. Transitional epithelium. Simple squamous is a single layer of flat scale-shaped cells. Stratified squamous is a stratified epithelium in which the topmost layer is made up of squamous, flattened, and scale-like epithelial cells. Pseudo-stratified epithelium appears to be stratified but instead consists of single layer of irregularly shaped and differently sized columnar cells. Transitional epithelium, also known as urothelium, is a type of stratified epithelium which usually appear cuboidal when relaxed and squamous when stretched. Thus, the answer is transitional epithelium. Number 29. What do you call the intercellular substance or matrix found in cartilages? A. Chondrin, B. Chondrocytes. C. Osteocytes. D. Endosteum. Endosteum is the cellular layer or the thin vascular membrane of connective tissue that lines the inner surface of the bony tissue. Osteocytes is a cell that lies within the substance of fully formed bone. Chondrocytes are cells in the cartilages. Chondrin is the substance or matrix in which the cells of the connective tissue cartilages are found embedded in. So the answer is chondrin. Number 30. The functional unit of the bone is called A. Osteocytes, B. Canaliculi, C. Version system, D. Peristrium. Osteocyte is a cell that lies within the substance of fully formed bone. Canaliculi is a small canal or duct or passageway in the body. Periosteum is the dense layer of the vascular connective tissue enveloping the bones except at the surfaces of the joints. Harvation system provides the protection and strength of bones, also contain a mineral matrix and living osteocytes connected by canaliculi which transport blood, making it the functional unit of bone. Number 31. What do you call the membrane which surrounds the muscle tissues? A. Microfibrils. B. Fasciculi. C. Sarcolemma. D. Epimysium. Myofibrils is a basic rod-like organelle of a muscle cell. Fasciculi or fascicle is a bundle of muscle fibers. Sarcolemma is the cell membrane of a muscle cell. Epimysium is the tissue sheet surrounding each cell. Thus, the answer is letter D, epimysium. Number 32. The dermis of the human skin is important for the following functions except A. Sensation, B. Protection, C. Transpiration, D. Thermoregulation. Sensation, protection, and the thermoregulation are all important functions of the dermis. Dermis is made up of fibrous structure composed of collagen, elastic tissue, and other extracellular components that includes vasculature, nerve endings, hair follicles, and glands, which prove its major functions. Thus, the answer is transpiration, which is a process occurring in plants. Number 33. All muscles share the following prefixes except A. Myo, B. Mys, C. Myo, D. Sarco. Myo or mys means muscle or of muscle or relating to muscle. Prefix sarco means tissue. So the answer is myo. Number 34. Which form of RNA delivers information from DNA to be used in making protein? A. Messenger RNA, D. Ribosomal RNA, C. Transfer RNA, D. All of the above. Transfer RNA transports amino acids to the ribosomes to be assembled. Ribosomal RNA serves as structural components of protein-making structures known as ribosome. Messenger RNA delivers information by serving as temporary copies of the information found in DNA to be used in making proteins. Thus, the answer is messenger RNA. Number 35. What branch of biology is involved when one is studying the characteristic structure and functions of all kinds of cell? A. Cytology, B. Morphology, C. Physiology, D. Histology. Histology is the study of the composition and structure of plant and animal tissue. Physiology is the study of the normal functions of human and animals and their parts. Morphology is the study of the words. Cytology is the study of all kinds of cells such as their structure and functions, which means to say that cytology is the correct answer. Number 36. Which directional term means towards the middle of the body? A. Proximal, B. Medial, C. Superior, D. Inferior. Inferior or caudal describes a position below or lower than another part of the body proper. Example, the pelvis in inferior to the abdomen. Superior. or cranial. Describes the position above or higher than another part of the body proper. Example, the nose is superior to the mouth. Proximal describes a position in a limb that is nearer to the point of attachment or the trunk of the body. Example, the shoulder is proximal to the elbow. Medial describes the middle or direction toward the middle of the body. Example, the chest is medial to the arm. Clearly, the correct answer is medial. Number 37. The nucleus is a prominent spherical or oval structure located usually near the center of the cell. It is the control center of all cell activities. Which of the following do not form a part of the nucleus of a eukaryotic animal cell? A. Nucleus. B. Mitochondria. C. Nucleoplasm. D. Chromatin material. Nucleus is the largest structure in the nucleus of eukaryotic cells, which is best known of ribosome biogenesis. Nucleoplasm is a type of protoplasm that is composed of thick fluid and constitutes chromatin fibers which made up of DNA and usually found in the nucleus of the eukaryotic cells. Chromatin material is the material that makes up a chromosome that consists of DNA and protein. That leaves us the option B as the answer, which is not part of the nucleus in the eukaryotic animal cell. Number 38. A type of skeleton which consists of fluid held under pressure in a closed body compartment. A. Endoskeleton. B. Hydroskeleton. C. Exoskeleton. D. Hydoskeleton. An endoskeleton is an internal skeleton composed of hard, mineralized tissue that enables movement by attachment to cells. Exoskeleton is the external skeleton that supports and protects an animal's body. Hydroskeleton or hydrostatic skeleton is a flexible skeleton supported by fluid pressure. So the answer is hydroskeleton. 39. The sagittal plane divides the human body into A. Upper and lower portions, B. Left and right portions, C. Superior and inferior portions, D. Ventral and dorsal portions. Sagittal plane of longitudinal plane is an anatomical plane which divides the body into right and left parts. Number 40. Which plane divides the human body into dorsal or back and ventral or front or posterior and anterior planes? A. Coronal. B. Transverse. C. Horizontal. D. Superior. Superior or cranial describes the position above or higher than another part of the body proper. Example, the nose is superior to the mouth. Horizontal, axial or transverse plane is the plane that divides the body or an organ horizontally into upper and lower portions. Coronal plane, also known as the frontal plane, is any vertical plane that divides the body into ventral and dorsal sections. Clearly, the answer is coronal. Number 41. Who constructed the first advanced microscope in the late 17th and early 18th century? A. Anton van Leeuwenhoek. B. James Prescott Joule. C. Wilhelm Röntgen. D. Emil von Behring. Emil von Behring is the one who introduced in the 1900s the serum from immune horses as a method to cure and prevent diphtheria. Diphtheria is a serious infection caused by strains of bacteria called Corynebacterium diphtheriae that make toxin or poison. William Conrad Röntgen produced and detected electromagnetic radiation in a wavelength range known as X-rays or Röntgen X-rays. Röntgen rays. James Prescott Joule laid the foundation for the theory of conservation of energy, which later influenced the first law of thermodynamics. Anton van Leeuwenhoek is the father of microbiology, who was the first to observe bacteria and protozoa that leads him to use the first advanced microscope. 42. Cristae are found where? A. Centriole, B. Nucleus, C. Mitochondria, D. Lysosome. Cristae is a fold in the inner membrane of a mitochondrion. So the answer is option C. 43. Which of the following does not play a role in DNA replication? A. DNA polymerase, B. helicase, C. Single-stranded binding protein, D. Guanyl transferase. DNA polymerase is responsible for the process of DNA replication during which a double-stranded DNA molecule is copied into two identical DNA molecules. DNA helicases are essential during DNA replication because they separate double-stranded DNA into single strands, allowing each strand to be copied. Single-stranded DNA is produced during all aspects of DNA metabolism, such as replication, recombination, and repair. Guanyl transferase are copying enzymes that catalyze the formation of the 5' in the co-transcriptional modification of messenger RNA. This means to say that among all options, guanyl transferase does not play a role in DNA replication. Number 44. Splicing is the process that does which of the following? A. Remove introns and conserve exons. D. Remove exons and conserve introns. C. Remove mutated regions of primary transcript RNA. D. Add multiple adenosine bases to the end of the primary RNA transcript. The process by which introns, the non-coding regions of genes, are excised out of the primary messenger RNA transcript, and the exons, which is the coding region, are joined together to generate mature messenger RNA. Thus, the answer is option A. Number 45. The 5' process creates what type of linkage? A. 5 to 3, B. 3 to 5, B. 5 to 5, D. 3 to 3. The 5' process is the process that forms 5 to 5 linkage between the two substrates such that the GTP molecule is oriented in the opposite direction as the other nucleotides in the RNA transcript chain. Thus, the answer is option C. Number 46. Codons that code for the same amino acid are called A. Synonyms, B. Similars, C. Degenerates, D. Complements. Met and TRP are encoded by one codon each. The other 18 amino acids are encoded by 2 to 6 different codons. This is called codon degeneracy. The genetic code is described as degenerate or redundant because a single amino acid may be coded for by more than one codon. Different codons that encode the same amino acid are known as synonymous codons. Thus, the answer is option A. Number 47. What links codon and anti-codons together during DNA translation? A. DNA ligase, B. Single-stranded binding protein, C. Complementary base pairing, D. GTP. DNA ligase is a specific type of enzyme that facilitates the joining of DNA strands together by catalyzing the formation of a phosphodiester bond. Single-stranded binding protein binds with DNA, but it does not bind well in double-stranded DNA. GTP or guanosine triphosphate is an energy-rich nucleotide analogous to ATP or adenosine triphosphate that is composed of guanine, ribose, and triphosphate groups and is necessary for peptide bond formation during protein synthesis. The complementary base on the codon and anti-codon are held together by hydrogen bonds, the same type of bonds that hold together the nucleotides in DNA. The reason that links codon and anti-codons is that they are complementary base pairs. Number 48. Which of the following groups of muscles in the leg allows a person to stand on their toes? A. Inverters, B. Everters, C. Dorsiflexors, D. Plantar flexors. Inversion of the foot is the tilting of the sole of the foot inwards towards the midline. Evetors are the muscle that rotates apart outward. Dorsiflexors are muscles that help the body clear the foot during swing phase and control plantar flexion of the foot on heel strike. Plantar flexors is used whenever you stand on the tip of your toes or point your toes. Clearly, the answer is plantar flexors. Number 49. The coronal plane divides the body into blank. A. Transverse and oblique. B. Medial and lateral. C. Superior and inferior. D. Ventral and dorsal. Coronal plane or frontal plane, a vertical plane running from side to side, divides the body or any of its parts into anterior and posterior portions or the ventral and dorsal. Number 50. Which of the following is not considered part of the quadriceps muscle group? A. Biceps femoris. B. Vastus lateralis. C. Vastus intermedius. D. Rectus femoris. The rectus femoris flexes the hip along with the sartorius and ellipsus and extends the lower leg at the knee, working in conjunction with the other three quadriceps muscles. Vastus intermedius is located centrally underneath rectus femoris in the anterior compartment of the thigh and on each side of it. Vastus medialis and vastus lateralis respectively. It is one of the four muscles that form the quadriceps femoris muscle. Since B, C, and D are all parts of the quadriceps muscle group, thus the answer is biceps femoris. And that's the rationalization of the pretest for cell and molecular biology and anatomy and physiology. Thank you for watching.